Here we are. I wanted to. This is gonna be super informal, and it's
I haven't gathered that so far.
and it's gonna be super informal. But I wanted to tell one story that I feel like wraps up the whole problem that we're gonna kind of be covering quick, and it happened 2 years ago or something. We were both speaking at the same event, the University of Western Ontario. I had already spoken, so I was kind of like chilling in the back, and you were on stage and you had finished your talk and there were some questions. Do you remember this?
I do.
And one of the students came up. I think she was a fourth-year kinesiology student.
Young lady. Yeah.
And she put up her hand. We were in like an auditorium or something. There was a few hundred people, and she put up her hand and she said, "I'm a fourth-year kinesiology student." And by all accounts, she said about kind of like what she was doing, and like she was pretty advanced. Like she had done a lot. She'd done a lot of volunteer stuff. And she said, "I'm going to be graduating with a kinesiology degree, and considering that there's no way to make money in the fitness industry, what do you think I should do with my career?"
That's right. Yeah.
And it was just I was in the back of the room, I was with my wife, and your daughter was there as well, and we were standing with her, and you were on stage, and you could see that you were kind of taken aback by it, and I was kind of taken aback by it because of how she started the question.
Right.
Considering that there's no way to make money in the fitness industry, what should I do with my degree that's going to allow me to enter the fitness industry?
That's right. Yeah.
So talk to me about kind of your response to that, because really, I mean, that to me leads perfectly into your book,
project,
which is awesome. I was flipping through it last night.
Yeah, I just I feel like what she felt is a thing that people feel.
Right.
It's what, I mean, honestly, it's what I was told. Like, I was going to go to med school, and then at the 11th hour, I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this. Like, I think it's going to be challenging, which is what I was doing at that time in my life. What's the hardest thing I can do? What's the thickest wall I can run through? Okay, I'm going to go do that. But then I'm like, I like fitness and food. Yeah. Like, why am I going to go to med school? It's just going to be torture.
Right.
And I'm just going to go do this instead. And then people are like, you're crazy. You're just totally crazy. What are you going to... The Fitness Factory is looking for people, right, on the fitness assembly line.
And you were before me because you're really old. So I was like way after you in this. But we went to the same university. For anybody who doesn't know,
gray hairs.
I'm getting them, and I don't grow my beard as much anymore because I'm getting like the orange in it too.
Oh yeah.
Like the orange and gray. Yeah, I know it's happening. But you were way ahead of me in university. And
way ahead.
So
many years.
So many years ahead. And but even when I was going through, I was going to go to med school too.
Yeah.
For no other reason than I literally did not know an adult growing up who wasn't a doctor, lawyer, accountant, teacher, or business person.
Yeah.
I mean, that was all. Like, I didn't know that there were other jobs, and that was even going towards university. So I didn't do so good in school, and then finally grade 12, I found this like exercise science course that I took, and I was like, okay, well, I kind of like sports even though I'm not very good at them.
Yeah.
And I may as well go to university for it, and went for kinesiology. Still always going to go and become a doctor because that's what good Jewish boys are supposed to become.
Yeah.
And even in university, I knew that I didn't want to do medicine pretty early on, but even after university, I don't know if I've ever told you this, 2 years into my personal training career, I put in applications to do masters in muscle physiology.
Right.
And even after university, even into personal training, a few years in, my plan was still always to go back to school to do a PhD in muscle phys.
Right.
And I had a client of mine at that time who was the Associate Dean of Medicine at U of T at the University of Toronto. And I mean, just the best thing about personal training when you're young is you basically get paid to spend time with people who are really successful.
Right.
And I think a lot of people underscore that fact.
Oh, they miss it completely. Like, this idiot doesn't even know about protein. You're like, wait, time out.
This dude is the
guy flew in a helicopter last night, and you're condescending about his macros.
And those paying, like, you could not buy these people time, and they're paying money to spend time with you. So a lot of my mentors were like my clients.
Yeah.
And so Rick, he was the Associate Dean of Medicine, and I told him about this plan because I asked him for a referral letter. There was, I wanted to study old age satellite cell atrophy, and the University of Saskatchewan was one of the few places, like Colorado, some of the places that were doing the research. So I was, putting an application.
Too bad. Things might have worked out for you.
Things might have, but what was so here's what happened. So he said, I'll write you a letter, absolutely, if that's what you want to do, but first I need to know why you want to do it.
Right.
And And I'd never thought about this before, but my knee-jerk reaction was, because I want to write a book. And I never knew that was what I wanted to do. It was never a thought. It was never a consideration. Nothing, right? But for some reason that came up. And he looked at me and he said, so write a fucking book.
Yeah.
And the craziest thing is, if like 5 years after that, so basically if I were to put in applications and go through and do a master's and PhD and go through as fast as I possibly could, the year that I would have graduated was the year that Ignite the Fire came out.
Right.
And that set me on, this path where my parents still don't understand what I do for a living, but it seems to be working out okay. But nobody knows.
Well, this is it, right? I mean, the real answer for why do a grad degree or why become a personal trainer even is these are the well-worn pathways, right? These are the ways that when you do a surface scan of the industry, you go, oh, okay, well, this is the thing you walk down. And heck, I mean, going to med school is difficult and challenging, but it's a well-worn pathway. Someone points you in the direction, and you just have to go hard in that direction until med school boot camp is over. You know what I mean? And the same with getting a law degree and all that. And I think that's why it's challenging. I think that's why that young woman is like, oh, everyone knows this about the fitness industry. No, what we know though is that there are a couple well-worn pathways, and if you're not the perfect fit for them, it's not going to work out. But
you give a great example in the book of a mutual friend of ours. You don't actually say who it is, but I mean I know who it is because it's a mutual friend of ours who worked at Microsoft in a very high position. Can you tell that? Because I think that the minute somebody hears that story, they kind of get it. They're like, there's more out there.
This story was great. Yeah, and I hope it dissuades some people from like applying for a job at PN because so this woman was like a project manager at the highest level of Microsoft, did projects for Bill Gates, and after years of that lifestyle and culture, had her first child, realized, hey, I want to not only spend time with my family, but I want to take care of my physical self. So she signed up for PN coaching, had a great outcome, was like, oh, this is my new value set, right? Wow, and a new purpose for me. So she's an ass kicker, right? She's a very, very talented person.
She's mentored somebody on our team for a while as well. Yeah.
And so you think, okay, cool. So this is the thing about ass kickers, and I've seen it. Lots of people. I used to be a lawyer. Now I'm going to get into fitness, right? It can't be hard over here, right?
Yeah.
But she set her mind to, I'm going to work at Precision Nutrition.
Okay.
Right. So she got our certifications, and we have a pathway: mentorship, internship, etc. And she applied many times, never got the job. She's telling me this story over lunch one day, tearful, and after like we went through that together, at the end when the tears were gone, I was like, you know what I'm so proud of? Our team for not hiring you.
Yeah.
And it was like probably the thing she did not expect to hear. And I'm like, because it's not your unique ability.
Sure.
Like you should be doing what you're doing at Microsoft in a company that has your values and shares your purpose. That's where you belong.
Yep.
So you need to create that thing. Another couple examples, when I was sort of at the tail end of getting, hiring out my operational roles at Precision Nutrition, we were looking for a head of product.
Yep.
Right? So head of product is basically someone who looks after all the technology and its user interface and all that. And as we're interviewing people, I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. There are people out there who are as passionate about health and fitness as me, but also like technology. And instead of going and becoming a coach or a personal trainer, they leaned into this, and now they make $700,000 a year.
Yep.
And I'm like, I need to highlight all these potential pathways for people because they exist and they just don't know what they are. And you talked about wanting to write a book when you were younger. What I talk about with me and when I help people try and uncover their unique abilities and purpose and all that is Muscle Media 2000, you're way too young to remember, but that it was a print publication. It was the dominant publication in the space in strength training and bodybuilding and all that. And I'd get mine every month.
Okay.
And it was awesome and exciting. Bill Phillips eventually owned it, and it became sort of a vehicle for selling EAS supplements way back in the day when he owned that. But I would actually, Muscle Media 2000 was the magazine, and I was in my the bedroom of my parents' house that I was in as a teenager, and I was writing articles for Muscle Media 2000 that of course I would never submit. They were no good. Of course they would have never accepted if I had, because I was young and had nothing, no experience, no training. But I was doing this before I was paid to do it. I was doing it. We often talked about it, PN, like ride the horses in the direction they're already going. That's the direction they were going. Right. And I talked to someone recently who's got a great business. They're doing close to 10 million in revenue. They're kicking butt. And he was like, help me create a content machine like PN has. You know, I want to learn how to do that. And the first thought I had was, well, I can teach you how to do that. The second thought I had was, there's not a single person in your whole organization, and I know them, that was writing articles for Muscle Media when they were 18 years old.
Yeah, that can naturally do this.
Yeah, no one's doing it with their free time. No one wants it enough.
Because they're video.
They do video, the audio. They're great at audio, like podcasts and things like that. So I'm like, you just need to figure out how to be world class, like PN quality at what you're already doing for free.
Yep.
You know? And so all of this sort of coalesces around this idea of an answer to that woman's question. Like, there are ways to be successful, but if you copy other people, the chances are super low.
Or if you try to keep up and say, well, I got to do Snapchat today. Well, I got to do Periscope today. Well, I got to do TikTok today. I don't even know what the heck. Somebody told me that TikTok exists. I don't even know what the heck that is. Like, Instagram is like laughable how bad we are at it. Yeah. You know, we don't even really know that it's working. We're just assuming that it is.
That's right.
And like, I don't know, it's going to space and come, like, I don't know how it works.
Someone posted on mine, John, is this really you? And I think they were implying like maybe I have someone who manages my Instagram. Yeah. And I'm just like, I think it is. I think it is. I'm not even sure if this is live.
Sure. So, but that goes into this conversation about thinking that you need to do all this stuff, or else you're a failure and never going to be successful. Like, our company goes deep into written publishing. We do books. We do written stuff. Like, that's insane if you listen to millennial marketers. Right. But you know what? It's going okay. Yeah. Like, we're doing fine. Yeah. Because we made the decision that we're going super deep in that one thing. Yeah. And you know, people who like books, they really love us. And people who love videos, who are never going to read a book, well, they're not for us. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing to really keep in mind here is like, you are for some people, you're not for some people. That ain't a bad thing, but you got to go super deep first. And then if you're good enough, you start to push out at the edges. You start to naturally push out at the edges. And at that point, you can do stuff like what we're doing here every once in a while and say, hey, we're going to do a video because you put out a book and this is a good opportunity and we may as well do it because we like talking to each other anyway. So let's, like, we decided to do this like 3 days ago.
Yeah, that's right.
It's, you know, and so, but the reason that we can do it and that there's people that are going to pay attention to it is because we built platforms that have nothing to do with this. Yeah, that's right. Right? Yeah. You can't really, like, you know how hard it is to build a platform with a podcast?
Right. Yeah, it is. And I mean, you said the reason we're doing this, and I think that's the most important thing. What's the reason, right? Do you have, for people watching, do you have a framework for how the activities that you think you should be doing fit into the big picture? Right. You know, I'd love your answer to this. You know, I say business is basically 3 things only. Okay. It's know what people want, like really what they want and what they're willing to pay for. And that's easier said than done. Yeah. But, you know, there's ways to know. And you just thinking what people...
And it's so much deeper than what you see. It's not make 6 figures. Right. It's not get a 6-pack. It's like, it's so much. I mean, give one of the examples you gave in the book. The example that I love was... because a lot of it is like, oh, nobody's willing to sign up. Everybody says that they need it and nobody's willing to sign up. And you guys came to a really interesting finding that people signed up at a certain point in their life. That's so talk about that, because that's fascinating.
Yeah, we were interviewing a woman. So the process we use, Jobs to be Done, you know this, and I know you've used it in your business as well. And
it's really well covered in this.
Yeah, I wanted to give people the actual questions to ask people, but the idea is you have to ask people specific questions, and some of them are weird. Like I'd be like, John, so tell me when you signed up for X program. And you're like, don't you know? It's your program, right? Can't you just look in my data in your database? And the answer is, yeah, of course I can look it up. But I want you to think about when you signed up. Where were you when you signed up? Who were you with? Who did you just talk to? And so we're actually recreating the internal conditions, because now you're going to give me an intellectual reason, right?
Sure.
So I need to know who you were in the moment. And so we're talking to this one woman about why she did precision nutrition coaching, and she's giving us all the answers that everyone else would give. Well, it was time. I'd been feeling overweight for a while now, and X, Y, Z.
Which is how many people walking down the street feel that way, and how many of them sign up for a fitness program that day?
That's exactly
so
right.
Those answers really aren't that important for figuring out why anybody is going to
that's the white
hit that
noise
catalytic
of her
point.
thinking,
Yeah.
And
she's saying what she feels like she should say.
That's right.
Anytime you do a survey with somebody in a group, the reason why surveys are so fallible is that oftentimes if you're doing a survey that's in a group, or that anybody, that anybody else is going to pay attention to, it's basic herd behavior.
Right.
People say what they feel like they should say because of how they feel like they want to be perceived.
That's right.
The response that they give is to improve their perceived self-worth in a community based off of what they believe is the pre-existing things that should exist in that community. And,
that's right.
And the way that you should think. So this is how people should think. This is why people should sign up for a program.
Oh yeah, I think
but it ain't
about
why
this
people
all
do
the
it.
time. Yeah, I think about this all the time in my own work, right? Because I'm like, I know I'm going to do that at times.
Right.
So I have to censor myself and go, oh wait, okay. Someone asked me a question. I think this might be the appropriate answer based on how I want to be perceived, based on social pressures and all that stuff. What's the real answer?
Yeah.
So anyway, for this woman, and that's why the book took me so damn long, because I had to do that I'm like, I wanted to write a lot more pages today, but I realized what I was going to say was what I thought I should say and not what I really believe. And so anyway, with this woman, she mentioned this one thing about how her son just got his driver's license.
And that's the key to the framework, isn't it? To find those really tiny, obscure details. That's how you unlock it.
And then as an interviewer, to know you got to latch onto them.
Yes.
Now, it might be a dead end, but you say, oh, wait, tell me more about the driver's license thing. That's really cool. Like, he's 16. Yeah, so my son, he's a swimmer. And he's been swimming since he was little, and he got his driver's license, and I'm so proud of him. And she's telling us this story. And what comes out of this is that, for the last 11 years of her life, she drives him to swim practice early in the morning, sits in the car, reads a book.
Yeah.
After school, picks him up, drives him to swim practice. So is it a coincidence that within a month of him getting his driver's license, she signs up for coaching?
That he's now self-sufficient.
That's right.
And she's off the hook.
She now has hours a day, and even more than the hours, there's a shift towards self-care. Like she's been caring for him, and now it's like, oh, in the absence of having to care for him, there's room for self-care. And so so for us, it became, all right, cool. Where else is this happening? Right? This is a big aha moment, right? What kinds of life changes precipitate someone doing coaching, or in the case of our education side, certification? Like, where would someone be as a professional in their career? They know they need education every day of their career.
Sure.
To say, bam, I'm going to do this nutrition certification now, right? And with launches and with urgency and scarcity, you can manufacture some of that, but some people see the launch and they don't sign up.
You
so
can
there
only
has to be something
manufacture
in their
much.
life,
The only way to really sell is to illuminate tension that already exists within somebody. And you can't manufacture tension to a high enough degree that you can really build anything off of it. You have to identify, it's the famous Gary Halbert line, if I want to tell something, the best thing I can have is a starving crowd.
Right.
You got to identify a starving crowd, and then you need to eliminate the tension of why they're so hungry in a way that's meaningful enough for them at that moment where they're ready to take action. And then you might need a little bit of like a little, okay, well, like, let's get off the fence here. Let's get off the fence.
So sort of extending from that, then we started looking, are there other areas? So, we started seeing, when we interview men, it's a scary medical diagnosis. When we interview other people, it's a career change, or they lost their job, or they got a new job, or they lost a relationship.
But it's some sort of state of change, right?
It is, yes.
It's some sort of state of change.
Like it's something that creates like an upheaval of some kind in their life, no matter how big or small.
Right.
And that's generally when people do the things they have wanted to do all along. Now, if they're on your mailing list or my mailing list, it's something they've wanted to do all along. It's not like we're just grabbing some random person on the streets of Toronto and grabbing their ear and being like,
sure,
nutrition certification, you need one.
But on that point, you're talking about like email mailing lists. It's so expensive and difficult now to keep and maintain attention. Even if somebody's on your mailing list, like once your list becomes sizable, good luck getting more than a 15 or 20% open rate. Good luck keeping somebody on that list opening emails for more than a few months. It happens, but it doesn't happen very much.
Right.
So it's become more and more important, at least this is my opinion, I haven't spoken to you about this, but it seems to me to become more and more important to actually tailor your marketing to identify people who are ready now, and then build stuff into, almost to have like 2 tiers to your marketing, right? You tailor your direct response marketing, which includes now, I believe, your email marketing.
Yeah.
Email used to be a lot of nurture stuff.
Right.
I think less and less.
Yeah.
And you tailor your direct response marketing to basically identify people who are ready to go now, call them out and give them the opportunity to go like now and give them the information they need, of course. And then build stuff into your system so that if they're not quite ready to go now, you're still there in a very cost-effective way so that when they're ready to go, they think of you.
Yeah.
Those are things like the stickers, the water bottles, the books, where you actually have physical things, because it's so expensive to create. It's so expensive to create any kind of impression online, on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Anybody that you kind of need to get away from that, or else.
I know you and I are
be pretty poor.
both big believers in this, and you get I think people can do it at any stage of their business. Even if you have a small business and not a big budget.
Sure.
But being physically present in people's lives.
Yes.
I often tell this example, like Craig Ballantyne sends me his physical newsletter, and it's just a couple pages, like a flyer kind of a thing. And it comes to my house, and I don't read it the minute it gets there, so I'll set it on my desk, and I'm like, this is the most genius thing about this newsletter. It doesn't actually matter what's in it.
It sits on your desk.
Craig puts a picture of himself on the cover of every one. So literally, I see Craig Ballantyne every day. I walk into my office and Craig's there. Like, I see him more than some of the people I love the most in the world. And it's because he puts a physical thing in my office.
And it's so cheap
reminds
to do
me to think of him every day.
This thing is like 4 pages, right?
Yes.
So printing nodes, you print basically based on 4 pages, which is why you often see everything is like on a ratio 4 pages, it's like 20 pages, 24, 28, right? Because it's a sheet is 4 and then they fold it together. Right. So 4 pages is cheap. Basically 4 pages is as expensive to print as 3.
Right.
And the second you go to 5, it goes way up in price. And so I'm always looking for things, and that's a perfect example, that have a disproportionately positive return for the time and money invested. That's a good example. One thing that I do professionally with colleagues is, who gets birthday cards anymore? With Facebook, with over every, just nobody's paying attention to anything. When was the last time you got a birthday card in the mail? So there's a website, Postable. Basically what I went through is I asked all of my close professional colleagues, there's like 160, 170 of them. I asked them for their address, and I put it in a big spreadsheet. And then I had an assistant go on their Facebook accounts and find their birthday, because they all list it. And then you upload all that data in a CSV one time to a website called Postable, which is just a big address book online. And you can check out one time to send a birthday card on the person's birthday. Every single time, and you upload your picture and write a note, and it's like handwritten font, stuff like that. So there's a birthday card that arrives at somebody's house from me and my family that has just like a nice note. It's like, I really enjoyed getting to know you a bit this past year, and I can't wait to get to know you next year.
Yeah.
Even better. I mean, I'm not pretending that it's like me writing it out, because that's just impossible.
Right.
But that cost me like $2 a person. On all of your clients' birthdays. I say this to everybody. I'm like, get custom stamps made with your face on it. If you live in Canada, United States, or I think you can do it in the UK, although I think they changed it, but you can get custom stamps done for like a couple pennies extra other than regular stamps. You buy a stack of postcards that are like 25 cents each.
Yep.
You get custom stamps that are like 50 cents each. And you write a postcard. Even if this is even for your clients in a gym.
Yep.
Somebody like nails a deadlift or whatever that day, when they leave the gym, write them a little card talking about how they nailed a deadlift, and revisit it back to their goal, and send them that in the mail with your face, or better yet, get a set of stamps, one for each of your clients, with their face on the stamp, with a little thought bubble that says, is awesome.
Yes.
And send it to them in the mail.
Yeah.
And like, that's A, never getting thrown out.
Right.
B, getting displayed for a long time, so anybody who goes into that house sees that and says, hey, what's this? And now it's a referral generator. Like, it's just that thought process of just, it really doesn't cost much money.
Right.
People are like, how can I maximize my Facebook ad conversion? It's like, man, we're 8 years into business.
Right.
And we're just starting to dabble in
totally
paid advertising on a serious scale, like 8 years in. Because there's so many things more important.
High return things are so valuable. And the one thing, as you describe it, I'm like, that's a genius tactic. I try and always then level up and go, okay, where does this fit in? Because there's 1,000 tactics you could do, and you'd fill your whole day doing them and not training your client or whatever else your actual business production is. So I think about, okay, how do they fit in? And this is where we started, right? One is know what clients want and what they want to pay for. And it's easier said than done, but there's ways to determine that. It's just know that you're not going to come up with it in your own head.
Yeah, right.
Two is then you do something awesome to deliver it, right? Something remarkable. And this is where I think this fits in, okay? And again, okay, my client wants to lose weight.
Yeah.
They do, plus they want a bunch of other things. For example, like every human, they want to be made to feel special, to be cared for, to be thought of. And that's what this does. So this is
I would argue that is actually more important to your business and their results, because it will keep them exercising longer than your program, than your nutrition. I mean, I would argue that. It's not saying that other stuff is important. Of course it is.
We did that research. I tell the story in the book. Like, there was a woman who I found on Facebook years ago, maybe 8 years ago, actively not recommending PN coaching. She went through the program. People were asking her, would you do it? Should I do it? And she's like, I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool. I want to look up this person and see what went wrong.
Sure.
Right? She lost like 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And we do a bunch of like measures of resiliency and food knowledge, all these things. Every measure improved. Okay. Right? So I'm like, I must know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
what in the world?
Is she just nuts? And we did a jobs to be done style interview, and turns out she didn't feel cared for, connected, and had developed a deep relationship with her coach. The thing. So even though we helped her lose 50 pounds and improve nearly every marker, she's like, and this was the quote, I didn't need my coach that much, but if I would have, I'm not sure how much they would have been available.
This, by the way, is why Silicon Valley will never replace coaches. Because Silicon Valley, tech apps, every time, I'm sure you get it too.
Yeah.
It's like anytime there's like a Netflix documentary, it's like, is this the end of eating meat? It's like, well, no, like it's just some sensationalized documentary with like bad science. Basically, it's talking about this thing, and like, there's nothing wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
But it's obviously not the only thing, and the other thing isn't bad, and perhaps we're actually doing more damage than good by making people believe that what they were previously doing over and over and over again is bad all of the time.
Right.
And this is the solution, and then 6 months from now, oh no, that solution is also bad. So
Right.
maybe everything you're doing is terrible and you're always hurting yourself, and then people don't believe in themselves. Maybe
Right.
that's causing more harm than good, by the
Right.
way. I don't know. But
You haven't
when
thought about this
I
much.
haven't thought about this at all. But when every time there's a new AI system to coach trainers or to coach clients or whatever that comes out, some app, some whatever, you see these sensationalized articles come
Yeah.
up. Is this the end of personal training?
Right.
And it's just laughable.
Right.
Because is the automatic door opener the end of doormen?
Right. Right. So, we were talking about this idea of doing remarkable things,
Yeah.
So what is business? It's know what people want, do something awesome to deliver it. And we talked about all the different ways of awesome
Right.
and how sometimes doing the awesome thing isn't what you expect.
Right.
So I want to unpack the idea of the birthday card. Right?
Okay.
So that to me fits in that bucket. Do something awesome to deliver it. Well, what are you delivering? Well, you're delivering the feeling of personal touch to colleagues. And in some cases, that is your business.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you can get all of your colleagues in the industry to respect your work, first of all, look at your work.
Sure.
They're busy creating
So look
content
at your
themselves.
I mean, if you get an email from somebody that you don't know, even if you know of them, but you have no reason to have a personal relationship with them, or reputation that precedes them in any real significant way, there's just not enough time.
Yeah.
Hey, review this program. You might have put together the best program in the world. You'd never look at it.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're a jerk.
Yeah.
It's just there's just no possible way to do that.
We talked about this idea before we started filming, like of creation and consumption. We have 4 children, and one of the very popular things in school now is to rail against screen time.
Okay.
Right? How do you get kids to do less screen time? Right? And I'm like, okay, sure. Take away their iPads, whatever. I'm like, you know what? Banning them from being on screens is the same as saying, like, don't eat junk food. All you're thinking about is junk food. So in our field, you give people healthier alternatives. You say, don't do this, but do this instead.
Okay.
Right? And so I think about this like with our kids. How do I get them to do less screen time, which is consumption of media? I teach them how to create. Right? And so now they're desiring creating more than they're desiring consuming.
Right.
And that's the sleight of hand you do. And I find that like my most successful colleagues, that it's hard to break through and get them to, let's say, read my book.
Sure.
Because they've figured this out intuitively. Like, I need to be doing 80% of my time creating, not consuming. And so I think about it like, okay, cool. If you are an entrepreneur, you want to start a business or whatever the case may be, you have to figure out your ratio of creation to consumption, and you likely have to create way more than you consume.
Maybe.
So,
But to me, it comes down to being purposeful about both the creation and the consumption.
Agree.
I mean, even with the kid, like my wife and I have this line that we keep going back to, which is keep the special things special. We basically never eat out. We bring our lunches every day. We basically never just like eat out on a whim. But if we're going to go out for dinner, it's going to be special, and we're going to really be there.
Yeah.
And it's the same with screens. Like we won't sort of sit down and just say what's on TV. We won't just like flip through whatever. We have nothing against watching TV. We love TV. We love watching TV. Like TV's great. But it's like, oh, I want to watch this, or like I want to. I really feel like watching comedy.
Right.
We went to comedy last week, and I love watching comedy too. And it's just like, really want to do this. It's the same with the book. It's not just like flipping through.
Right.
There's a way to read. Like I have a very specific way that I read and mark up and make notes of books. And so what I'll do is I use the library a ton because I think the library is amazing and underutilized. And I'll go and I'll put, anytime basically anybody tells me about a book, I'll put a hold on it in the library. And then I went just the other day, I had 2 books come due. So, I just walked to the library, picked them up, 2 minutes, and I'll flip through them and I'll read through them really, really quickly. And like I might go through 2 of them in a night because I'm not really reading them. Basically what I'm doing is checking to see whether I want to read them.
Right. Yep.
And I think that's the key. You know, don't feel like you have to finish something. You know, this book that you put together, like, holy crap, man, this thing is a blueprint. Try going through this whole thing in one go and make use of it.
Right.
There is no chance. This is a tome that you are going to go back to for your entire career. And to be honest, no matter what industry you're in, like, this is going to teach you how to be better, because I don't know if this exists for many industries or any. The fact that it's for health and fitness industries is just super cool for us, but really it could be for anything.
One of my favorite comments was from Brian Cron, who was one of my 15 early reviewers. And
Cranky Cron, I love that guy.
Yes, well, that's why. Like,
Cron was our hidden editor for many years.
Oh yeah,
did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
He was our editor behind the scenes. Basically, like, we had.
You guys called him Cranky Cron?
No, I just called him that now because I thought it was funny, and I've never called him that. He's gonna hate me. But Cranky Cron. But he was our hidden editor.
I said he has an impressive level. I posted this on Instagram yesterday of curmudgeonosity.
He does, but he's super brilliant. So he was the first, like, PTDC editor, but it was at a time where the website and stuff was really small, and a lot of our best readers were also writing for us or wanted to write for us, and we had this problem where, you know, a lot of trainers, like, aren't really good writers, and we could only publish so much, so we had to say no to a lot of them.
Right.
And I didn't want them to know who was saying no, because if you don't know who you can be mad at, then you can't really be mad at anybody. You can't really hold anybody in contempt. And so it was hidden. Like, nobody knew who the editor was that was saying no to them. It was just like PTDC editorial.
Right. Yes.
Was Brian.
Well,
it was me for a while too, saying no to people before he came along.
Yeah.
I was the editor, and I was my assistant, and I was everything with different emails.
That's right. So he just posted that. You know, I asked him to review it, and he spent a lot of time trying to, like, figure out what was wrong with it and what to make better. But he just ended up reading it 3 times and then revisits it once a month. And I'm like, that's so, because Brian isn't a guy you could pay all the money in the world to, and he would say something he doesn't believe.
Sure.
Right? And he'd be super honest, and he'd tell you what all the problems of all the things are. So I'm like, when he has that kind of positive sort of discussion of this, and then goes back and looks at it himself, I felt super honored by that.
Like to me, the way to read this book is to basically fly through it really quick. And almost create, like, a system of highlighting and marking of stuff to do now, stuff that's interesting to think about, and stuff to review later. And stuff to do now is, like, you know, if you take a step back and do an assessment and say, what's the biggest problem that I have? Or what's the biggest stepping stone? What's the biggest pain that I have right now? Like, there's a solution for it, right? So cool. Like, then go back and spend time on that one thing. Like, you should spend a month, easy, if not more, studying the jobs to be done section in here. And then going and looking deeper into jobs to be done, and then using this as a blueprint and doing that and implementing that. Like, that's probably a half-year job. Right? If you try to read this whole book and it's like, I'm going to do it. No chance. But if you go through it and you do it with that one section, if that's, like, the most important thing for you right now, and then later on, you kind of know what's in there. And later on, you say, okay, what's the next step? You go in there and you have the next step, and you do that process versus this continual consumption. And that means that you're not going to study and read other stuff. You know, it kind of has to be like, if you're interested in online training, like, we're the people for you. If you're not interested in online training right now, like, don't look at us. Like, don't even look at us. Don't even, like, nothing. But when you're ready, we're the only ones you should look at, you know? But if you're not ready, you shouldn't look at us.
See, even your book, the way you read books, proves my point, right? You actually turn your consumption into a creation. You're like, oh, I have a whole stepwise process for how I turn the consumption of that information into an action plan for my life, right?
And
that's
part
the
of
creation,
that is
the
marking it up. I mean, I can talk to you about how I mark it up. Part of that is how I mark it up, and then give it to somebody else, to an assistant, who actually types up notes for me based on how I mark it up.
Right.
So I'll use like hashes on the side if there's like a passage, and they'll type up that passage and put it in the document.
And
if
then
there's
it
a
becomes
quote,
yours.
I'll put a quote.
It becomes your. Now you own that knowledge, right?
If there's like an insight that I have based off of it, they'll write the passage, and then they have a different way to write out the insight in it, and then you put all that in a binder. And now with page reference,
right?
And now I have binders that have like each binder is like multiple books, but now I have binders for like books that are impactful of stuff to review back,
right?
And I can first go to the binder,
and
then go. So basically, I'll go through the whole thing once. I'll do that marking, and I'll dog ear the pages, and then I'll go through it again and look at the markings, and usually be able to eliminate some of them, like the second time through, like maybe it's not as important, and then I'll hand it to somebody else to basically document it for me, and keep it.
Yeah.
So then I'm not opening the book again and saying, okay, let's start from scratch.
Right. Yeah.
Which is just, again, it's impossible to not be purposeful in your consumption and get anything done.
Yeah. Learn on Tuesday, teach on Wednesday seems to be our culture.
We're off the cuff and we'll swing back, but talk about believability, because I think that's
right.
We're joking about it, but like it's not true that learn on Tuesday and teach on Wednesday.
Yeah, so that's like a bit of a pejorative to the people who are out teaching, who just learned it yesterday.
But we're teaching.
I hope to think I stay in the wheelhouse of things I have experience and knowledge of for a long period of time. But yeah, the concept, I think, of believability is one, you should ask that, am I believable? And two is you should look for believability when you're trying to get advice from others. I first learned about this from Ray Dalio and his criterion, is just this idea like, okay, the best ideas are not in your head. You know what I mean? Like the best ideas come from some alchemy of what you're thinking, plus a conversation with this other person who's really smart, plus going, I have a problem to solve, you over there, how do you think about this? That's where the best ideas come from. So the question just becomes, who do you let influence what you're going to do next? And it has to be those who are believable, right? Or at least, I don't want to ever give the impression that you shouldn't listen to non-believable people. You should, because sometimes they add value. But the idea is, how do you weight the opinions of those who weigh in?
And it doesn't mean that you need to accept what they say, right?
That's right.
It's just what you let into this cluster, this like pot of information that you're going to hopefully make sense.
I mean, there's this like, as I grew as a professional, I realized like, all right, I have a decision to make here, and it's mine, right? So that's really freeing when you're the decision maker, because you never have to argue with anyone who's giving their opinion. All you can do is listen.
Right.
And so I watch people who are decision makers argue with people who are giving dissenting opinions.
Right.
And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What? You are in the most power position. All you need to do is listen. Right. And you go, oh, thank you. I have to go make this decision now. I'm going to go weight everything that I've heard, and I'll make the call now.
So what are the believability indicators in terms of understanding who you should weight strongly in terms of...
Yeah, so one is, has this person done it before?
Okay.
Have they done what you specifically are trying to do?
Right.
If the answer is yes, then their believability notches up.
Okay.
Now, have they done it repeatedly?
Yes.
Under different conditions? Like in Ray's world, great if you have one good investing year. Ray runs a huge hedge fund. But it's really great if you've had good investing years in all kinds of,
markets.
Economic conditions. So then, have you done it repeatedly?
Yeah.
And then the third is the most interesting, I think, is can you explain it in a way that makes sense to me? Because first of all, if it doesn't make sense to me, I can't use it. And second of all, if you can explain it in a way that makes sense, in my circumstances, there's a higher probability that it'll work. Right? So, and again, what does this mean? You follow that person's advice blindly? Absolutely not. It's you just weight it a little higher.
Yeah.
Go get all the opinions you can from all the people you need to get it from. And if some of them are your brother-in-law and some of them are someone who actually is in your field, great, get them all. But then start weighting the ones that are more believable a little bit higher.
I think, I love those three. I Ray's book, Principles. I mean, there's a fun story with PN that, you know, your partner Phil kind of made it happen, which is neat as well. But I mean, the book is incredible, and it's like this. I mean, it's a playbook. It's a tome that you can go back to for years and years and years. It's not a quick read, but I love those levels of believability, and I've taught this over and over again. Of just like one of the biggest problems I think for people who buy advice these days is a lot of the folks who are selling it based off of, here's how I did this thing, I'm going to teach you how to do this thing,
right.
which is totally cool if what you should build is the exact same thing as what that person built.
Yep.
But that's almost never the case. So if you know that, absolutely, go to the one person who has the exact thing that you need.
Yeah.
But usually what you should be looking for is somebody who says, I know that you want to get there.
Yeah.
I have a background of helping people get there, and I've gotten there myself, and I've overcome that myself, and we've done it with all of these people, and I've kind of figured out that there's a lot of principles, that there are patterns, that there are strategies that need to be in place, and I've created a post hoc, post narrative that helps you skip, you know, any successes like this, right? And anybody who tells you that they figured something out before they did it is lying or disillusioned.
Right.
Nobody does. It's all, you know, eureka moments and stuff like that. The problem is, you know, humans are post-rationalizing beings. We're not rational, we're not irrational, regardless of any behavioral psychologist that you listen. We're post-rationalizing beings. Something happens that nobody could ever predict because the world is too random and chaotic.
And then we put a narrative on it.
And then we put a narrative on it, and then we help people on the narrative, and that's important to understand. That's not a bad thing. It's important to understand, because the more narratives that we put on it, the more we can begin to smooth out that curve. It's never going to be smooth. But the more we can continue to smooth out that curve. But one thing happening to one person is not enough data.
Oh yeah, totally. And what I like about this criteria is, if you're going to follow it, it forces you to be more rigorous personally before you make decisions.
Because you don't need to do a lot. You need to make a few good decisions. You don't need to do a lot of stuff.
That's right. And
I mean, PN is a perfect example of that. You guys actually didn't do that much. You wrote articles, you sent emails with a comically archaic system, with the worst email segmenting, like everything that you could, like it was hilarious how behind you were with all of that, with your payment processing, with your emails. You weren't even on Instagram. You know, like nothing, but you basically said, well, you know, there's probably other stuff that's really important, that if we can do that really well and focus on that, we're not gonna spike like anybody else. We're just gonna kind of go like that.
That's right.
Over time, and everybody who's spiking,
a great example of this
we're
is
just
like
gonna fly past it.
What we were joking about on Facebook the other day. John did an Amazon review and it had a typo in it. And I know
but I should know the difference between then and then. But I mean, that's just bad.
I know. It's, have a moment of shame, and then we're going to move on to the important lesson here, because I've noticed this about, like, when stuff comes out in the newsletter, like in your mailings, not anymore. It never does anymore. But historically, I would notice like a higher percentage of typos
for sure
in your work.
Oh, when I was doing it?
So if a typo comes out in something related to one of your businesses, I'm like, John pushed send on that. And if not, someone like Lou did, right?
It's
like
funny,
his editorial team went through it.
It's 100% true.
And what I've always found charming about it is that
you know, you don't know the difference between there and there and there.
Is that
you know, one of them is a sky comma.
I know you can spell check your work.
Sure.
I know you could read it for the 5th time to look for grammatical errors, but you read it 4 times for the content, and for the persuasive ability and the story, and you were like, yeah, if a typo makes it in, it's okay, because I will have done what's important, not what's expected.
Right.
You know?
And then 6 years into business, you hire arguably the best fitness editor in the world,
And
Lou
he gets
Schuler,
rid of all the
as our
typos.
editorial director.
Yeah.
And he gets rid of the typos.
And he does, Lou, you do more than that, I know. But
No, he of
also
course.
gets rid of
I
the
mean,
typos.
But he gets rid of the typos, and I mean, we have an incredible editorial team. It's not just Lou.
Yeah.
Geraldine's unbelievable, and I mean, Geraldine was senior copy editor at Rodale. Like that was literally what she did.
Yeah.
So with these books, I mean, Mike is the one who's really working with us on them, but him and I are working hand in hand on them, but Geraldine is the copy editor.
Yeah.
So like now we have that.
And what I dig into...
we're talking like 8 years into business.
Oh, and this is it. And let's be really clear here. You don't go be successful so you can eventually hire a copy editor.
Well, so let's talk about this. So here's what... I'm going to ask you this because I know what the answer is, and I know you know the answer is.
Right.
What is the number one most important thing when you're starting your business where nothing else matters?
Sales. Selling things.
Make a freaking sale.
Yeah.
Don't like we just ran a challenge where the goal was to get 1 to 5 new clients for your online training business.
Yeah.
We have a 92% success rate of people who do 50% or more of the challenge. And what we get all of the time is, my insurance isn't set up and that's not set up and my computer systems aren't set up. It's like, you know what?
People are spending a month on the name.
If you have a client,
business.
you're gonna figure this out.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
There's one of my favorite apocryphal stories is Edison, which I'm gonna talk about right after the break.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of the sales thing, man, like, this isn't just...
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
If you make a sale and somebody's waiting for a product or service, like you're gonna get your butt in gear and you're gonna figure it out quick and you're gonna work at night and you're gonna deliver that thing.
This isn't just like an entreaty for people who say, I don't like sales. It really is the cornerstone. You can't serve. Without sales, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't do without money. You can't do anything.
Right.
And so the thing is, and this is a tangent, but this is why I think the startup culture in Silicon Valley, the VC culture, is really, really difficult, and why there's so much failure there, and why there's only a few big success stories, because companies become engineered from the beginning to sell to investors instead of customers.
Got it.
So their whole DNA is built around never developing the skill of selling to customers.
Interesting. I've never heard that
It's a different customer. And this goes back to our thing again, like, you know who all your customers are. And some of them are the people buying your books. Some are signing up for your programs. Some are your professional peers. They're your customers too. They might not be buying things from you, but what you're trying to sell them is you, yourself, your business, the systems that you have, and how it would be useful to them to share them with their communities.
For sure.
You know what I mean? That isn't a customer base of yours. And that's why they get birthday cards.
Yep.
In addition to you being a nice, thoughtful person, it's also an influencer move.
Ain't nobody hiding what the real intention is behind that. Like, I of course legitimately care about them.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't be on that list if I didn't. I mean, there are colleagues of mine who don't get birthday cards who would be valuable as a business relationship, who I just don't have that type of relationship with, and for whatever reason, don't really aspire to.
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't like them or I don't like what they're doing. It doesn't mean that I would not benefit from working with them. But you can't work with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You may as well work with people you like. And by the way, if you like somebody and you're actually friends with somebody, you'll figure out a way to work with them. And if you're not, you probably won't.
Right.
Like make friends first.
Yeah.
Don't reach out to somebody. I mean, we talked before about how you get messages in like 30 different places now.
Yeah.
And so
DMs on Instagram, Facebook. I'm like, I just discovered a new place where people message me inside of Instagram. I didn't even know existed. Like, I was already overwhelmed by the 2 places where they were, and I'm like, I'm never gonna get to these. And then a little pingy thing came up the other day, and I looked at that. I'm like, oh, there's like 500 messages in here too.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to say I'm sorry to all these people.
There's just no chance, and so, you know, you can just ignore it, which I mean a lot of people kind of do. Or like I have part of the job of some of the members of our team is to respond to it, and what they are told is, I don't see anything. I don't see anybody who wants to partner with me about anything, and it's purely because if you really had something, you're probably somebody I know, or you could probably get a personal introduction to me. If you're just saying I have an amazing opportunity for you, there is no way for me to sift through that to identify whether it is or not in any kind of an efficient way.
Yeah.
For some of them that are, and don't get me wrong, like it's amazing. I mean, we've spoken about this when we talked about saying no. It's an amazing position to be in where like people actually will come to you and say, I have something for you that you're like, this is amazing. Like you want me to speak, you want me to partner, you want me to, like that's so, you want me to be on board of this thing. Like, you know, I've had a couple invitations to be on advisory boards in the last couple of weeks and like, it's incredible, but it's not the right decision to do it. But like it just doesn't. Again, it goes back to like what matters. It's sales, man.
Oh yeah.
Like it's sales, and when you make a sale, you'll figure it out.
Well, this is it, and this is the third part of that thing we've been talking about, you know, and then diverging and coming back, right? It's know what people
like we planned this.
Want, right? Do something awesome to deliver it,
right?
And then again, and there's a couple tiers and layers to this. Like one is like, what do people want? Well, what we're talking about are your ideal customers and the people adjacent to them who can help, like colleagues and things like that. And then do something awesome to deliver it. And that's like a beautiful, well-designed, thoughtful book with all kinds of extra bonuses. And then it's a birthday card to the professionals who you want to influence. And then the last thing is tell everyone about it.
Sure.
Right? And this is where I think people get confused. They're like, do I Instagram? Do I Facebook? Do I put up flyers? Do I do a live feed? I'm like, wait, before you think of this as 1,000 things you have to choose among, stick all those confusing things into a bucket and you go, this is the tell everyone about it bucket.
Okay.
Right? Now, I don't have to do them all. What I have to do is tell everyone about it. Now I can decide how I'm going to tell everyone about it.
And you don't even really know what it is until you start doing it. I think that's the catch-22. That's why that's why we did what we did with the challenge. Where we just say, just get a client.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've been teaching people how to do online training for 6 years.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided now in the last year, because all of that experience has led us to like, you know what really matters here? Get a client because you're going to figure it out. Like, like this Edison story. I'm sure you know it. Like it's super apocryphal. Like who knows whether it actually is real or not.
Right.
But it's one of these things that's told so often that it's just assumed that it's true.
Yeah.
So it may not be true. But basically when Edison wanted to invent something, he'd send a press release and he'd alert the newspapers that he'd invented it at a certain date.
Right.
So that then he would have to invent it by that
he
date.
would force himself.
You know, like if you're like, oh, I don't know what my program's going to be and I don't know how to communicate with people and I need to figure it out and I need to figure out what software I'm going to use and all of the stuff. It's like, well, you know, if you had a paying client like that needed to hear from you in 2 days, you'd figure that stuff out and it would be good enough.
Yep.
And as long as you can, and this is what we do with the challenge, we give people permission to be imperfect.
Right.
And we give them permission to be imperfect in the eyes of their clients too.
Yeah.
The entire pitch is your offer is for founding clients, right? So you're basically saying to people, you get a great deal because I'm putting together a program and I want to test drive it.
Yeah.
With you know, no more than 5 people, no more than 10
Chris Rock
people.
story I've been telling lately where...
What's that?
At a comedy show, Chris Rock's not on the marquee. All of a sudden there's like a ruckus in the back of the room. Everyone's like, what's going on, you know? Chris Rock comes up, and it's not Netflix special Chris Rock. It's jeans and a t-shirt Chris Rock. And his lead in
When was this?
Years ago.
This is like before he was Chris Rock?
No, he was Chris Rock.
He was, okay.
Oh yeah. And he's got a notepad.
Yeah.
And his opening line is, okay, I got to start this by letting you all know you better lower your expectations. And then he just reads his jokes off a notebook, right?
Yeah.
And the idea being like, it doesn't matter how big and famous and successful you are, you still got to work it out. Like there's like those people in the room were the founding members.
Sure.
Right? He's like, I'm just trying this out on you. Some of it's going to suck. And the stuff that doesn't suck is going to make it in my next
special. There's an entire underground comedy scene in New York City where comedians show up all of the time to open mic nights. I mean, like the best comedians in the world, like Chappelle, Chris Rock, Seinfeld, and they
it's
test
magic
their
because
material.
they're not on the marquee. Because if they're on the marquee, then people buy tickets to go see them, but they're not getting the thing that they think they're getting, right? The person is working it out. Like he doesn't have his software yet. He doesn't have anything in place yet. Most of these jokes are going to be bad. A couple of them will be good. And it's okay because you didn't pay to come see him. You had no expectation.
The issue is that if you pump your chest and say, I'm the best and I know everything and my way of macros or veganism or whatever you do, whatever you believe in, totally cool. It all works, by the way.
Right.
Though, so like whatever you do, that's totally cool. But what will cause issues is believing that you need to create this persona where you are the absolute infallible expert.
Right.
And that can cause real problems because then you don't ever give yourself permission to work something out. So it makes sense, even if you have a program over here where you are the absolute expert, where you're like, I know this stuff and I'm going to help you and I'm the expert, you could still have a founding program here where you basically say to people, I'm going to test some stuff out. Do you want to be a part of it?
Right.
And like you could always have that no matter your level of expertise.
That's right. And you
always should.
The simple notion that you're the most expert at that thing is folly, really. I mean, like who could be the most expert at all the things that a client wants and needs from you? Like no one. You could go get 10 PhDs in this field and still not know that what the client wants is free to ask how their dog who's sick is doing. You know what I mean? Like that's what they want. They want a connection with a human who cares about them. You know, they're spending all this time with you. They're investing a lot of money with you. Like they want to get in shape and they want you to care about them.
Right, and we'll continue this after the break.
Yeah. So we kind of finished the story arc of knowing what people want, do something awesome to deliver it, and then tell everyone about it.
Sure.
You know, with the caveats. You don't want to tell everyone about it. You want to tell everyone who needs to know about it, right?
Well, and people who are ready to hear about it at that point and identifying them and understanding that that's not everybody and that's cool.
And if you can figure these three things out, that's business. I mean, it's not more complicated than that. It's challenging, yes, but it's not more complicated than these are the only three things you have to figure out how to do.
Okay.
And why I love this framework so much is because it literally takes all the 1,000 things you think you ought to be doing and makes you funnel them into one of those three. And then you have to say, okay, what do I need most now? Do I have an awesome thing? I don't have an awesome thing. Okay, then I shouldn't tell everyone about it. So stop 3. Focus on 2. All right, do I have a thing and I don't know if people want it? Okay, stop 2, like as you're building it, and go figure out number 1. So really, I think helps prioritize what to do next. And then when you're living, I did a bunch of posts about this. I'm like, what I want you all to watch is I am now in tell everyone about it phase. So you're going to see this book everywhere. Why is JB doing a podcast? Because it's time to tell everyone about it.
Right.
You know, why are we doing this? Because it's time to tell everyone about the awesome thing that I built.
Versus just randomly.
I got to be out there. Got to put myself out there.
You've got to show your work.
Yeah.
I
hide for a little longer.
I'm very
until you
passionate.
build something awesome.
Well, I mean, I think that you should always be making sales.
Yeah.
I think that you should always be making sales. So that was one of my questions. Like, how do you know when you're ready? And how do you have the confidence that you are ready, that you're actually going to do the thing, I think is a very important point to hit on. Because thinking that you need to know a little bit more about a thing, we live in this infinite world. I mean, it's obviously not infinite, but like more or less infinite world where the infiniteness creates really big problems. There's too much to know about something to the point where there's always related articles, related posts, related podcasts, whatever it is. There's no finality. And when there's no finality in the information, how do you ever know when you're ready? How do you ever get the permission to take action on it, which means you're never confident enough about a thing.
Yeah.
So how do you know? Can you quantify that in any way?
Right. Like so you mean, okay, so according to my framework, when it's time to start building the awesome thing?
Yeah, like how do you know that you know enough about a thing so then you can go and actually start doing the thing? And my belief is that like you should probably start selling the thing way before you're ready to do it, but know that you're not going to make a catastrophic mistake. you know, and that's kind of with me. It's like,
Yeah.
identify what a catastrophic mistake is, which is quite different. You know, when I started my business, like spending $2,000 was a massive decision.
Right.
Well, now we can invest $500,000 in a bet.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't be catastrophic if it's a terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it would suck, but like it wouldn't put us under. So like that line moves.
Right.
But
well, the schema,
identifying the line.
The schema that you need to know more to do a thing, I think is maybe for some things, but it's flawed for a whole bunch of others. You know, what it has to be is it has to meet a need, and it has to be good at meeting the need.
Okay.
Right. So how will you know if it is going to meet the need? There's an interview process. You have to ask people. You won't know. How will you know if it's good at meeting the need? Same. You won't know. You have to ask people. I mean, one of my favorite strategies is the thinking aloud strategy. And this is how this book was created the way that it was. I sat down and I wrote the thing. Now, I'm believable in this field. And I've written a lot. So I'm like, okay, cool. I could probably get a good draft. Right?
Okay.
Now, I'm going to send it to 15 people. And they're not editors. They're not even traditional reviewers. I was like, I don't want you to fix any of the problems. Don't tell me about typos. Don't tell me about word structure. What I want you to do is in the side where you can leave comments in a Google Doc, tell me what you're thinking and feeling as you read.
What you're feeling, I think, is huge.
So in real time,
Yeah.
like don't reflect on it. Don't think about how I'm going to receive it. I'm like, if this section sucks, is how you feel, put it down. I want to hear it. I need to hear it. Because if 10 out of 15 people say that, the section's got to change.
The section sucks.
You know, if one says
Because
it,
5, we're trying not to hurt your feelings.
that's right. If one says it and one says this is my favorite section, now I have a different thing to consider.
Right. Well, that's a big. That was a big thing. Who was it? Neil Strauss. So like famous author and Rolling Stones author and a ton of stuff. But that's part of his schema. He says, if one person hates it, it doesn't necessarily go away.
Right.
But if one person loves it, it absolutely stays.
Right. Yeah. So for me, it was this. So I sent this to 15 people from all different fields and all different levels
All
of
over the place.
experience. And I said, I want you, if there's a joke in there that you think is funny, tell me you laughed. If there's a joke in there that you thought was cringeworthy, tell me you cringed. And I want it to be real stream of consciousness. I mean, there's a technique, it's in web usability design, where they bring 10 people into their business. Let's say you create a new website and they say, okay, cool, John, you're going to be my tester for this new website.
Right.
You have to do these 3 tasks on the site. One is you have to go find an article called X. You have to read it and tell me what you learned. 2 is you have to buy a product called Y. And Z is you have to do some other thing, right?
See how easy of a time they have doing that.
And they have to narrate it. It's called thinking aloud. You have to think aloud. You have to go, okay, cool, I'm typing in www.johnberardi.com now. And it's weird. You have to teach them how to narrate their
Spells
thoughts.
his name with an H. That's super weird. Why would anybody
Super
do
weird,
that? It's just
yeah.
an extra letter for no good
J-O-N
reason.
is the obvious
Like, why would you
appropriate
ever
way.
put silent letters in a name? It's just annoying for anybody who doesn't do that because
And
they
so
always get their
then-
name spelt wrong.
Yeah, and then you get taken right to the mental institution. And then okay, cool.
That escalated
I'm on the homepage now, and I'm looking for this article. First, I have to find where the articles are. Oh, usually they're in the upper right-hand column of the website. I don't see that there. Oh, okay, cool. I'm going to scroll down, see if I can find the articles. And like, all you need is 30 minutes of this, and with 3 tasks to know where your website's problems are. So I'm like, okay, cool. I can't quite do that with a 350-page book, so I'm going to create the equivalent of that. I ended up with 1,300 notes.
Okay.
From these people just thinking aloud, and their notes reshape the entire book.
Yeah.
And so where does this fit into my schema? Build something awesome. How will I know if it's awesome? I can't. I know I can come up with good. I know I can come up with good, but awesome is the interface between me and other people, right? So your question, how do I know whether it's time to ship or put something in the world or start building something? One is you have to know what people want. 2 is you have to know if you've built, if it's awesome. And so you need help on both. So that's, knowing more isn't always the criteria. Maybe if you're a medical doctor and you have to be good at diagnostics, you need to know more, right? But in a whole bunch of areas, you don't need to know more. What you need to know is what people want.
Yeah.
And then you need to start with a draft, and then you need to make a draft awesome. I don't know how many people touch a single article on your website now, but by the end of my tenure at PN, there were like 6 people who touched an article because no one person could make it awesome. So the idea that you are going to make something awesome alone, it's a myth.
But I think the key point here is it wasn't always like that with PN. You know, at one point, johnberardi.com, where you're sitting there like this in the double bicep, black T-shirt.
Yeah,
everybody had that. Every trainer, every male trainer has always done the crossed arm black T-shirt, push up your bicep pose.
So, but what you were driving at was the idea that in the beginning, I didn't have an editorial team.
No.
You're right. But I had a partner, and Phil and I ran each other's work against each other. So I never pressed publish on anything without someone else seeing it, even in the very, very beginning days. I mean, my first writing was at T-Nation, and TC and Chris Schugert were looking at that content too. So there's pretty much nothing that I've ever published that hasn't had even just articles.
There's been a lot that I've published that hasn't been looked at by somebody else. But it's part of the process. And I mean, the stuff is much better now. But like at the beginning, it was good enough.
Yeah.
You know, we talked in the first part of this, I don't know what it was, John and John scene 3 or something like that. But we talked in the first part about like stories that I romanticize about. And the other one is this story by Google. Again, probably apocryphal. I have no idea whether it's true. But like, who was it? Larry Page.
Yeah.
The story goes, he was asked about he was asked when investors came along, why don't you tell everybody what you have is amazing? This is Google. What you have is amazing. Why don't you tell everybody about this? Like, you should tell the world. We'll give you all this money. You're like, go out and tell the world. And he goes, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Because we're getting better every single day.
Yeah.
And the longer it takes for somebody to find us, the better we're going to be.
Right.
Now, that's not saying that he didn't want anybody to find him that day.
Yeah.
What that's saying is the people who did find him on that day were ready to find him that day. And we're ready to work with him on that.
Yeah.
So, like, part of my worry is that if you shout too loud, if you can even shout too loud too early, you're not going to be good enough yet. It's impossible to be good enough yet for the world to hear you. Right? But you're probably good enough yet for some early adopters, for some people who have loose connections with you, to hear you and be helped by you, and then you take that and you get better and you get better and you get better and you get better.
I always love how you teach this, for sure. I mean, it subverts the idea that you have to be perfect to ship, but there's also some truth to it. So it's both psychologically useful and true. The idea that people finding you when there's a real match between what you're doing and who they are and where they are is accurate. Like, until you get on. Historically, it would have been you got on Oprah.
Sure.
Like, if you had a nice core audience and you had a great product for them, but it wasn't ready for prime time, and you got put on Oprah too early, could be really bad.
Could be really bad. I mean, how many huge like Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns and stuff like that have just gone under because they weren't good enough yet in terms of their fulfillment and distribution and operations, and they got too many orders and it bankrupted them, and now they're a laughingstock.
Yeah, totally.
Look up the story of Coolest Cooler. It's just like, so if you can, which is big if you can shout loud enough that everybody can hear you, and you have something that might be a very good idea, like, it's still probably not good enough around the edges, all of the nuanced bits of it. And you don't even know yet where it's not good enough because there's just too many things that can break.
Yeah, you almost think of it like a timeline, right? Like, so me alone is going to do okay work, right? And mileage may vary, right? Me plus a core group around me helping me make it better is going to make it better, definitively. Some things that may be good enough, like this book. Now, I'm starting off with a pretty high bar. Like, I know how to write. I have good stories. I have a lot of important lessons. So I can write a pretty good draft. Not everyone might be able to, so they might need to lean on those people to help them make it better a little bit harder than I did. But then there's the next scenario where Now you have to let the market help you make it better, right? And that kind of keeps going, right?
There was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when my first book came out was there was a reason that somebody invented version 2.0s.
Right.
And I've always kept that in mind, and I love it. But what I love about what's happening with this book with you, and I've told you this, is you're getting scrappy, man. You're going back to your roots, and you're getting real scrappy.
Well, there's a reason.
And that's from a marketing, not from a production standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint. Like you're getting dirty with it.
Right.
And that's something I haven't seen with you for a long time.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fun for me.
So, I mean, what I think you mean by that is, like, I'm on the socials, and I'm, like, responding to people's queries about it or discussion about it.
But you're going back and re-propping old posts and groups and stuff like that. Like, you're like saving responses because you know that if you respond to like all of them now, right, that's only going to get you this benefit. But if you respond to half now and then a week later a few more,
because I think it's critical. I've had to teach a whole bunch of people this.
Like that, like continues to prop it up. Like that's some scrappy shit, man.
So like, okay, so we'll teach people this. Like, so if you post about my book in your group, right? So the way that groups work is that thing stays at the top as long as people are commenting on it. But when people stop commenting, it just falls off and no one sees it again.
Ever again.
Right? So I will, respond to one person's comment in my morning session on socials, and I'll go back and respond to a couple more in my evening session on socials, so that this thing keeps popping up. But then I'll come back a few days later, and if I have an update, I'll be like, hey guys, the book is shipping in just 3 days, and I'll put that in there, and it pops up to the top of the group again. So it makes old content fresh and relevant again.
With existing social proof, as opposed to trying to get new people commenting on each one, you have one post. I mean, we do that with, because inevitably, we've got our group, the Online Trainers Unite group. Inevitably, there's going to be somebody asking, hey guys, I'm considering enrolling in the Online Trainer Academy. Has anybody had experience in this? Which is like, you can go to the page and you can see 100 people that you can contact. You can go to our sales page, and we've contact information for all of them, and all their stories, and screenshots, and experiences. On the sales page, we've got like 40 people listed there. But I get it, like you want to hear from like an actual account. Totally cool. The problem is, everybody who's in the group now has seen this every week for the last 5 years. And so they're not going to come back and comment on every single one.
That's right. Yeah. So then it seems like there's a tepid response, right?
So it seems like there's a tepid response, which is not good for optics, which is like, okay, maybe they're like putting this on or whatever. And like the default that anybody has with anything online is this a scam?
Yeah, that's right.
And like there are very few scams, but I get that. And so what we do and what our moderators have is a list of posts that already have stuff where it already has, hey, has anybody had experience with this? And then we share the link to that and we say, hey, love for more people to pop in on this. Just so you know, we've had this before. There's a lot of great insight.
And then when they comment on that, the old post comes live again as if it's a new post.
100%.
Yeah. Well, and this is what, now I don't have the 1 million person PN list anymore, mailing list. You know what I mean? Our Changemaker Academy list has 4,000 people on it, right? So we printed 40,000 copies of the book. I'm not going to sell all 40,000 to 4,000. So there needs to be other ways of spreading the word. And it's been really fun in this kind of environment because I grew up email marketing in the industry. There was no Facebook and Instagram. Okay, speaking of this, I have a question about the thing we just talked about. Maybe
when you grew up.
Hey man, Phil wanted to start a business together online, and I said that'll never work because everyone was still on dial-up. I'm like, it takes too long for a web page to load. I told this on a podcast, and the gentleman who was interviewing me was like, oh yeah, I remember those days. Like, if I wanted to look at a dirty picture online, I would call up the URL in the morning before school, and it would be loaded by the end of the day.
Wow.
Yes, those were the days, right?
Oh, man.
So who would have predicted that, we'd be streaming live video right now?
If we still are, we don't actually know. So you had a question about Instagram to the expert.
Yeah,
obviously.
I did. Yes, of course. Well, you've been at it like 2 years longer than me or whatever.
Yeah,
I started
we've
my
been
Instagram
seriously at it
6 weeks ago. I started my Instagram 6 weeks ago. So if I respond to someone's comment in an Instagram post, does that pump it up on their feed?
Instagram,
Like with
nobody
Facebook?
really knows. I mean, first of all, like Instagram, you want to be in the search. You don't really want to be in people's feed because the feed is like 1.5 posts on a phone, and then there has to be ads in there.
Yeah.
And there's like so much content that people could potentially have in there because of what they're following.
Yeah.
Good luck really being in the feed.
Right.
Basically, in the feed, if you want to be in there, you need to have like messenger conversations with a ton of people. And it's very short-lived.
Yeah.
But you want to be on the search page.
Yeah.
And what has come out now is actually the biggest determinant to get on the search page in Instagram is not comments, is not interaction, is not even really follower count. It's how many people have saved your post.
I see.
So what you actually want to do is try to encourage people to save your posts now. And so we made a huge philosophical shift on the PTDC account to really creating like mini stories and mini content. And if you look at the designs now, a lot of them actually have an arrow on the actual image that says, because most people don't even know that you can save posts. There's like a little bookmark in the right. I mean, most people don't even know what that is. You can save and categorize stuff. So we actually have on the designs of our pictures now a little arrow that says save your post.
Facebook or Instagram.
So we want to encourage people to do this because it's a way, it's an opportunity now to get more exposure around your account simply because most people creating Instagram content is not the stuff that you would particularly want to save. You know, they're following like a celebrity or pseudo-celebrity or whatever it is. And like, they're not actually giving you like, you know, this person's like butt workout is really not anything that you're going to care about and save. Like, you just want to look at their butt. You know, they just put the butt workout on there to make themselves think that they're like an educator. But like, we all know what's going on here. And that's cool, but like, you're not going to say that. So part of what Instagram is doing is trying to make changes in its algorithm that selects for high quality people and high quality information. And one of the ways to do that is to disfavor. One of the ways to do that is to disfavor likes and comments because that kind of self-selects for sensationalized crap. But if you save something, then that's actually something that's valuable enough to go back to. You know, if you want to see a butt on Instagram, like click on Instagram, you're going to see lots of butts. Like you don't need to save one butt. You know, you're going to find more. It's not like, oh, this is a particularly like good one or like good picture or angle or lighting or whatever. Like there's lots of that stuff. So I mean, I'm joking, but like not really. She works so hard,
though. She works so hard.
But like
on that
not
photo.
really. Well, or he. Like there's. I mean, it's both. I never knew that there were so many shredded people. But what they're trying to select for is really valuable content that's going to make their platform something that people come back to. And that's stuff that's saved. So as a creator, you want to create material that people are actually going to save. And then you want to tell them to do it because nobody even knows that you can do it right now. And so that's a big opportunity.
So let's talk about that. Like okay.
Oh, geez.
So far we've said that you have to know what people want, you have to do something awesome to deliver it, and you have to tell everyone about it.
Okay.
And that sales matter more than anything. So as I talk about in the book, it was our battle cry for all of our ownership of PN. Sales solve everything. As long as you've done the other things, make something awesome that's for the people who are willing to buy it.
If you're making sales and you have a crappy product and the product is never getting better and you're not making sales, you're making sales under the auspice that you're the expert and that your product is awesome and it's not. If you're making sales under the auspice that like this is a test and you're part of an experiment and like, by the way, that's arguably a more effective way to sell, and that's more compelling to most consumers to like be a part of an experiment or a growth. And so you're getting a good deal, and you have a deadline for that deal because you know this is when the test is starting. That's actually a much more compelling offer than this thing is great.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree. So we have these criteria, and it has to meet a real need. It has to. And you have to know what that need is. You have to deliver something awesome, and then you have to tell everyone about it. Sales solve everything. So where does Instagram fit into that schema? Like, so in other words,
Instagram's brand.
Why would someone do Instagram?
Well,
you know, like someone watching who's like, okay, every morning I wake up, I post on Facebook, I post on Instagram, and maybe they don't know why they're doing it. Where does it fit in? How does it help your business, if at all?
It might not, first off. And it depends what your goals are with your business. Instagram is largely brand, you know, because Instagram, you know, Instagram's owned by Facebook.
And that's a word for like for people who don't follow marketing lingo, when you say sort of brand building.
Brand is the majority of people who purchase something, anything, a service, a product, their purchase decision is more determined on whether, like people don't purchase something because they believe it's going to be great. People purchase something because they're pretty confident that it's going to be not bad. You know, and so what a brand does is a brand is an unconscious way for a company to communicate to their consumers that they have a lot invested in this thing and they have a lot to lose by serving you a bad product. You know, us producing books, that's a brand move. The Online Trainer Academy in Precision Nutrition having a textbook, that's a brand move. One of my favorite lines is Charles Bell. Shout out to him, he's in Arkansas, gave me one of the best lines ever when we asked him in one of these interviews why you bought OTA. He goes, well, I was looking at a lot of people promising me a lot of things, and then I saw you at a textbook, and all that I could think of, ain't nobody gonna go to that much trouble for some bullshit. Which really, if you think about it, is just a great, perfect, dialed in definition of brand.
It is.
You know, why do you really buy something and spend more money on it? Is it because you actually think that what you're buying is going to be great and better than anything else? You may have convinced yourself that, but the reality of it, most purchase decisions are not merit-based. Consumers, for almost everything, including you, including me, for almost everything we buy, we make ignorant consumer choices. We don't really know enough about the thing to make a good choice. And so our choice is largely determined on confidence that this thing is not going to be a piece of crap. And then there's something else that kind of, so then the question is, I talked to Roy Sutherland about this, who's the vice chairman at Ogilvy, who's like my hero in behavioral psychology and advertising. And we had breakfast last week because he was in Toronto, and I asked him, I was like, okay, I get that, I buy into that. Basically what I told you, I buy into this.
How did you get breakfast with Rory, by the way?
I bought a couple hundred of his books. He writes a piece in The Spectator, which is a UK newspaper. He's been writing it for 8 years. I bought The Spectator, I bought a subscription, I had my assistant create a PDF of all of the articles that he's ever written by year, and I sent it to him, and I was like, you probably don't have this. And I've built a relationship with him over a while because of that.
Take some notes, people. You want to meet your heroes, there's a way to engineer it.
And
so anyway, what did you ask him?
So I asked him, I was like, I get it. I get all this stuff about, like, you know, consumers being ignorant and brand and most people being satisficers when they purchase and buying something. What's going on through a consumer's head that actually clicks in and says, okay, I'm going to buy? And what came out of it, it's this thing called idiosyncratic fit heuristic, which basically is a very complicated way of saying, if this is you, then this is for you. So that to me is kind of how you do. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're the only person that this is right for. But if you dial in who your consumer is, and you say, if this is you, then this is for you because of that, that person immediately now has choice to purchase from you and not somebody else.
My favorite framing it also is in that, along that line, is people like you typically do this next. You know? Beautiful.
Beautiful. And so going back to Instagram, like, I think a lot of it is brand is communicating that and sort of identifying your 1% uniqueness factor, which we talk about in OTA a ton, like just what is uncommon about me that might be common between us. And it probably has nothing to do with fitness. That's probably going to be a better way to sell to people than anything that has to do with fitness. The other thing that's becoming more and more interesting is, you know, it used to be like online marketing used to be, okay, cool, we're going to get somebody's email with an opt-in bribe, and then we're going to nurture them over email and then sell to them over email. If you want to build like a big company, you still want to build an email list. But if you're a trainer who wants to make like $5,000-$10,000 a month with online coaching as a side thing or even as a full thing, you actually don't really ever need an email list now. You can use something like Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn. I mean, really any of them work. YouTube even works, although YouTube doesn't have messaging, so it's a bit harder. But you can use these things to engage people and invite a conversation or begin a conversation, and then actually close them directly on that messenger. And so really, Instagram is great for just doing that and like reaching out to people who might be interested and facilitating a conversation with them. So does that kind of answer your question?
It does,
like,
yeah.
So like Instagram is not about like tons of people, and it's becoming a much. Basically, what's happening with Instagram is what happens with every social media platform, which is they come in and they knock the pendulum way askew, and everybody jumps in this kind of a cowboy era, and then it settles down in the middle, and it becomes hard, and it becomes more value-based, and you actually have to be good to use it.
Right.
And that's kind of what's happening with Instagram, and they learned a lot of their lessons. Facebook learned a lot of its lessons with Facebook where it screwed up and has implemented them into Instagram, basically making it a lot harder and self-selecting for a lot higher quality type of information. And you don't need a big audience at all. Increasingly, you will actually be able to get more out of Instagram with smaller followings because it's going to select for high value material that's actually safe.
The right fit.
And then you don't need many people, right? Like if you're charging $200 a month or $300 a month, you need 20 clients paying you $300 a month to make $72,000 a year. Like you don't need big numbers.
Right. And the idea of brand, I mean, to summarize is like, so you're using Instagram to create the idea that the PTDC or whatever business you'd be running does great work. That you should trust and follow us. And eventually, when you decide it's time to make a purchase, you'll think of us. So it's just another way to get in someone's life on a regular, consistent basis, kind of like the Craig Ballantyne picture or the water bottle or whatever. So you shouldn't think of it as
this water bottle?
So you shouldn't think of it as a way to directly convert sales, although it might help a teeny bit with that. It's mostly brand building. And I can't
One of the things that Facebook has done really well with Instagram is made it almost impossible to link out.
Right.
Right?
So it can't be a
So you
conversion
can't really
tool.
use it that well for sales. Like it's just not, consumers don't go on Instagram.
Even though they still give you the illusion that you can do it on Facebook, any post that has a link in it gets shared with no one.
Gets crushed. So this goes into a more interesting conversation about like, what are you trying to get out of different platforms when you use it? And if you start with that, and you build out what you're building out with that platform, you can get a lot more out of it, and you can also ignore a lot more stuff that doesn't make sense for you.
And I wonder, I often think about this, like brand, even the idea of marketing feels like a higher order concept for someone in the beginning, when sales is all they should be thinking about. So I'd love to unpack that for a minute. I used to, like I started as a personal trainer when I was 17. And so I remember like the clubs I grew up in as a trainer were sales focused. They had next to no marketing. It was just, if we can drag people in off the streets, we will hard close them until like they're either going to buy or they're going to run out of here in tears.
And it was a much less sophisticated market.
Totally.
And a much less sophisticated consumer.
That's where I learned, like,
although consumers in fitness are still pretty unsophisticated for the most part, but
to some extent, but and that's where I learned, like, okay, sales is you get people in, whether it's into your email inbox or into your physical location at whatever number out of 10 on the readiness to buy scale. And it's your job to persuade them to buy to get them 10 out of 10. Whereas marketing is you bring people in already at 8 out of 10. And so then it's sales is easy. So I'm just curious, like, for you, like what does being good at sales mean to you? Like, what is you're good at it, right?
Having people come to you and say, how do I buy? Show me where to press the button.
So you believe marketing, like influence?
I want to be in a position, and a lot of the work that I'm doing with my work and my brand and my company is a much slower, much more difficult, much more expensive approach. Because I want to be at the point where people blindly trust me, knowing that whatever I do, I mean, when we put out this book, we sold 150 copies in the first 6 minutes. It was just like boom, 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 boom. Nobody read the sales page, and I kind of wrote a message in one of our groups, like tongue in cheek, because I was just like, guys, you're buying really fast, which means that you didn't read the sales page because you didn't have time to, but like I worked really hard on that.
Yeah, right. Right.
You know, so can you increase that? Like to me, that's
a bit
marketing.
of a joke, right? But it's also, I don't know, Jason Granchi here is behind the camera, but Jay's a brilliant food photographer and a great chef and stuff. And he said a million times, like, people eat first with their eyes.
Yeah.
And I think people buy first similarly with their eyes. Like, one of the reasons I spent what I did, and both in time and money and effort, on making this book so beautiful, because I believe people buy first with their eyes. I'm like, when people see this thing, I mean, I show people, I'm like, if you look at this book from the side, it's like got ribbons of red and white. Like, it looks.
You know what's one of the funniest lines?
Nobody's gonna
don't buy a book by its cover. Well, how else do you buy a book?
That's right. Yep.
Literally, you buy books by their cover. Like, by definition, you buy books by their cover.
That's right.
So maybe you should make your cover pretty freaking appealing.
That's right. Yes. It's like books are almost the only place it doesn't work anymore, that phrase, right? It works in a bunch of other domains, but books is the one domain where it does. You know, so for me, it was like, people already think the book's great.
Yep.
Before they ever read
Because
it.
ain't nobody gonna put that much effort into some bullshit.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's exactly
They wouldn't.
my belief on it. You know,
Which is why, like, when you actually do something and put something out into the world that's like physical, it really does need to be beautiful. Because if you slap something together, it's almost worse than not doing. When we're talking about physical, like books and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. So, I mean, it is this fusion of...
Because a book is by definition a finished product.
Right.
A service-based business is not by definition a finished product, depending on how you communicate it. But a book is like part of the appeal of a book is that it's a finished product.
Yeah,
you know?
We're not going to redesign the cover for the next draft. It's
Right.
the next printing run. You know. Yeah, I mean, I just I want to keep unpacking because you're like, okay, great. For you want sales to be a no-brainer. You want people to come into your store begging to get your.
I want the right kind of people.
Yeah.
To come in and not even read a sales page and
But
know
how do you
that
do
it's
that in the beginning of your career? Like,
Right.
For new people out there watching, like, they're like, okay, nobody knows who I am, so no one's going to beg for what I've got.
you make sales.
Or are they wrong?
You make sales and you figure out who the heck you are by actually working with people. That's why we put together that Founding Client Challenge, is because you figure out any way to get permission to take imperfect action, and you actually take action on the thing because there's no other way to figure it out. And then you figure it out as you go, gaining more expertise and learning more about yourself at the beginning. You know, when I started as a trainer, I wanted to train athletes.
Yeah.
And I trained a whole bunch of people from all over the place. And I trained athletes. And I trained Olympians. And I trained people getting ready for drafts. And I trained celebrities and stuff like that. And I realized that I didn't like training those people.
Yeah.
I would have never known that if I didn't do it.
I remember one of my favorite stories is, I'm on the board at Equinox, and I was at one of their awards things where they bring all their personal trainers together, and this one guy won the award for like Trainer of the Year at Equinox. He had the highest billable hours and the highest net promoter score and all the relevant metrics.
Sure.
And I went up to him afterwards and I asked him, what makes you really special? Like, why are you kicking so much butt? Like,
What did he say?
I mean, the guy was probably earning $200,000 a year from client revenue, just from on the floor training revenue. And I was like, and as we probed through it, basically his answer was, I'm compiling some different quotes, but like, I'm not a better trainer than any of these other people. But you know what I do that they don't? Is that I find any little piece of progress and I celebrate it in a big way. So anything that my clients do that moves them a touch forward, I make a big deal out of it. And I'm like, I'm like, it's so genius because it covers a whole bunch of things. One is he's delivering what clients are actually paying for. You know what I mean? Which is a relationship, which is a coach, like a cheerleader in some senses. he's also engineering further success by finding successes, celebrating it, building up their confidence, right? So people are getting...
And giving them an opportunity to show off as well.
That's right.
When he's celebrating with them, they can then go and celebrate publicly, perhaps, in their communities, perhaps.
And he's the center of the party.
Improved self-worth.
Yes. So they're getting all they want and need out of it, so they tell all their friends. But also when you make a celebration, there's a party. And everyone notices there's a party. So everyone's like, they seem to be having a hell of a lot of fun over there. How do I join that little group?
Right, cool.
You know? So it's such a simple thing, but again, it goes back to what are people wanting? What are they willing to pay for? They're willing to pay for being part of that kind of relationship. Right. And so the guy has had wild success. Doing the thing that literally 3,000 other people in his company are doing. And this is how he differentiates himself.
And it's not because he's better at teaching squats.
That's right. People are dying to work with him. Like there's not enough of him to go around.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should probably, I don't know, start wrapping this thing up.
Yeah. It's been a while.
How do we do that?
Well, I mean, what did we talk about? We basically talked about the 3 rules for success, which is like, I dumb it down even more and say 2, do a great job, make sure everybody knows about it. Right. You expand it a little bit more on that into 3. So repeat those again, I guess. Yeah.
It's like the sticker thing. I just needed mine to be a little bit bigger.
Okay, so let's, so we created these stickers, the I Train Online stickers. So first of all, both of our good friend Molly at Girls Gone Strong created stickers, I Coach Women, and she made them like pretty small. So I looked at that and I said, we're gonna make stickers, but we're gonna make them a little bit bigger than Molly. So we did. And then JB, this jerk, looked at them and said, well, I mean, my friends have stickers, and like a lot of people who are going to get stickers from them are also going to have stickers from us. So why don't we make our sticker big enough that it goes across the entire computer so that there's no room for anybody else's stickers to be on there? And that's what they freaking did.
I would love for this just to be a joke. But literally, it was when I was signing off on all things that were created, and Aaron at Precision Nutrition brought me the sticker, and I was like, okay, cool, I love it. It's beautifully designed. It looks great. Show me it on a laptop. And this is honestly my secret weapon. You have to look at everything in context.
Sure.
Right? Like, and people don't. They don't look at things in context. Like the cover of a book. They'll be like, oh, here's the cover. And I'm like, stick it on a book. I need to see it on a book. I can't see it just independent of that. The sticker, where's it going to live? Are people going to wrap it around their water bottle?
Well, yeah, yours is too big, so we made ours so that it would fit on water bottles sideways, right?
And I wanted mine on a laptop. So then I was like, okay, cool, great. I see it on the laptop. Show me it next to John and Molly stickers.
I hate you.
And then I'm like, give me about 20% more size. This is an actual conversation.
Oh man!
But the secret weapon though is things in context. I have a couple people working with me on changemaker stuff, and it's literally every day.
Are you gonna make it a little bit bigger than Precision Nutrition? Just like getting like entire car wraps. Like,
look at the book. You think this is an accident?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't compare it to yours, but no, I literally every day I'm telling our team, okay, this looks like great work. Let's see it in context. That phrase. Let's see how it looks in the email rather than in the Google Doc. But anyway, so we talked about things, stickers, size. Or do we go from there?
Well, I mean, we really talked about a whole lot of things. We talked about marketing and brand. We talked about how to identify what to spend your time on, and when you do, both with consumption and creation, and how to be really purposeful. I think that's a pretty critical. That's a pretty critical, powerful thing, and that's like different for everybody. You know, I tried to share a little bit about kind of what we do, what like even my wife and I do, like how we decide, because we've got a son, we're busy. Like when we spend time together, we want it to be time together,
right? And
that time can go away really quick if you're not careful with your spouse, with your partner, with whoever you're with, and with family as well.
Yeah.
So like being really purposeful. Like I just bought a house a couple days ago, and it's walking distance to my parents and my sister, because we don't have a ton of time to be with family, and I don't want to spend that time that I'm with family in a car.
Right.
And I also want pop-in time. Versus we're going to go out of our way to spend time on an afternoon or go for a dinner. It's like, no, just like call them up. Be like, what are you up to?
Yeah.
That like being really purposeful with those decisions, and I think it's business, but I think it goes beyond business too.
Oh yeah, that's what I was
really
just
powerful.
thinking as you're talking right there. I'm like, man, you're creating the lifestyle that you want,
Right.
and that's great, and that people might want to be far from their family, right, for their lifestyle,
Totally
which
cool.
is fine too. And the key is don't copy yours.
Sure.
Don't copy mine. Copying is what all that's happening nowadays.
But to your point, and then we talked about believability and about, taking in information. How do we come to this? Well, I mean, Alice and I have traveled 4 to 6 months out of the year for the last 7 years. Like, I've lived in like every possible place to live. I've lived in major cities, small towns. I've lived in jungles. I've lived in pueblos. I've lived in a cave. I've lived on islands.
Right.
Like from Southeast Asia to Hawaii to North America to Europe to like old Soviet bloc, Eastern Europe, like literally, like almost everywhere, right? And all different types. And from every one, it's not like there's one place that we've been to, like this is it.
Right.
But every place that we've been to and that we've lived in, an environment we've lived in, has given us information to say what's really important for us. What do we really want? What do we really need? What do we really desire? And that has helped us be so confident and dialed in saying, okay, we want to make a home, which was a big decision because all I own is backpacks. And so we want to make a home, but what kind of a home do we want to make?
Right.
And that's wide reaching. And I think with a business, it's the same thing. You got to talk to a lot of people and kind of do this work to say, there's not one way. You can be inventive, you can be creative, you can be innovative.
Yeah, I think of this idea of like, if the goal of life and work and all of it is to come the closest and closest that you can get to your true self and your true needs and your true purpose, you'll be spiraling around it for a while. There's no straight path to it. In the book, I give a bunch of exercises.
You're never going to get to it. You're never going to hit it.
Oh, yeah. In this book, I give a bunch of exercises.
Oh, yeah, you'll get to it if you read the book.
To it.
Yeah, you'll get to it eventually if you read the book.
But I also think a great pairing for this book, after you're done with it, is David Epstein's Range, because he talks about how all those experiences, like how is living in a cave going to make you a better professional? But it has.
It made me really know that I didn't want to live in a cave on an island in Thailand and catch a parasite and catch.
Right.
We had fungus that took us like 3 years to get out of our bodies because we slept basically on a gym mat in a cave.
Right.
So I knew that I didn't want to do that again.
Yeah, totally. But all these diverse experiences have contributed to this wide-ranging skill set that you have that you use now in the service of your purpose. And
even from a networking thing, it was a huge joke. I was at a basically like a small high-level event for like business owners a couple months back, and it became a joke at there was 60 people. It became a joke at the event that every single person, no matter where they were in the world, I could talk to them intimately about their hometown. It was like the north of Kauai because we lived there in like Hawaii. Like I would be like talking about the sushi joint, and then like a town in Costa Rica to like it just became a joke. People were just like, really? But talk about being able to connect with people. If you're trying to connect and network with people, the one thing you do in an engagement with somebody immediately to create a relationship with that person is find an uncommon commonality to connect them. Everything you do when you first meet somebody is go through a series of questions to try to identify something that you have in common with that person to go deep on, and then you go deep into that.
Yeah, totally.
That's how you establish rapport.
Yeah, this is a secret weapon here because I being born an introvert and having difficulty in social situations, I had to learn this very intentionally. I'm like, I've been going for years. All I had to do was ask some questions.
All you had to do was figure out that they were a dad and then talk about how it's no joke to have a kid. It ain't like, and then talk about that and like get that that's going to be the conversation. That's going to be the basis of our relationship. Our friend Sam Pogue, I found out that he's from Seattle. I was like, oh, you a baseball fan? Yeah. Well, now we connect on how Ken Griffey Jr. is the best baseball player ever, which he is, and how I used to collect his baseball cards, and how my dream in business was to be able to make enough money to buy Upper Deck #1 1989 Ken Griffey Jr. and how I've never done it. What do you think he did a week later? What do you think he sent me in the mail?
Did he send you a card?
Ken Griffey Jr.'s Upper Deck rookie card.
Nice.
That's how you build relationships, right?
Someone asked me this the other day. How do you think about networking and stuff? You seem to know everyone. And I'm like, I'm an introvert. I'm real bad at the conventional sense of networking. So here's what I do. I get to know 3 or 4 people who are really well networked, and I go deep with them because that's my unique ability. So I can connect to pretty much anyone that I want to now through the few people that I know that are good at networking. So that's like
That's cool.
That's my hack for it.
Okay, we gotta wrap this up.
Yeah,
man.
we do.
I like that hack. I'm gonna steal that one. We gotta wrap this up. I don't know. There's no more wrap up. Buy this book.
This one too.
It's really good. Yeah, that one too. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us geek out on this. I mean, we figured we'd do this ourselves, so we may as well put a camera on it. And
that's right. Hope you all got some value if you watched the whole thing. If you didn't get any value, then we apologize. We had a lot of fun though.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye.